Have you ever asked a question and assumed you already knew the answer? Have you ever been surprised by the answer that you've received? And what have you done with that answer? We ask questions every single day, and sometimes we hear the answers, and sometimes we don't even listen. But progress comes from asking questions and then listening to their answers. When I was 12 years old, I traveled to East Africa for the second time, and that trip really changed a lot of things for me, although it wasn't my first trip to the continent. And while I was there, my mom and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And on that trip, we made a long journey, a week-long journey up the mountain, and we made a lot of progress. Some of the progress that we made was fast and easy and really kept things moving forward for us, and some of the progress that we made was really slow and didn't feel like much progress at all. But the fact of the matter is, we continued to ask each other questions, and we realized that it was best to continue, and so we did just that. The sunrise, the morning that we got to the top of the mountain, was incredible, as you can see, and that trip up the mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, really taught me a lot about progress. So, what else happened on that trip was I traveled to another East African country of Kenya, and while I was here, I was lucky enough to be a part of a groundbreaking ceremony, an opening ceremony that is, for an all-girls secondary school called Kisaruni, built by Free the Children. And on that day, there were so many people, so many locals that came out to support, but 40 young girls entered high school for the very first time, and it was incredible. To see 40 young girls enter high school, but also to see their mothers and their fathers be so incredibly proud that their daughters had a chance to go to high school and receive an education higher than they themselves could ever dream of. They were also inspired by their daughters because they knew that with the education they would now receive, they could go on to be the future leaders of tomorrow by getting a degree once they finished in university and then coming back to their communities and being that future leader of tomorrow. I asked a very simple question that day, and one that I assumed I knew the answer to. Is there a school for boys? I got a very simple answer. No. There was no school for boys. Hearing that there was a place in the world that didn't have gender equality, and it was because of the boys, prompted me to take action, prompted me to found Project Jenga. Jenga means to build in Swahili, the native language of Kenya. And ultimately what I wanted to do was build an all-boys secondary school in rural Kenya to match the quality of education that the girls were receiving. As a young grade 8 student, I had to ask, where would I go to school? Where would I continue my high school education? In Kenya. And again, I got the same answer. There was no place for me to continue my education. But there was. It was right back here, in Ottawa. There was a place for me to go to high school. But for my global peers that lived in Kenya, they weren't so lucky. And so I knew I had to do something about that. So I founded Project Jenga. For the last 5 years, I've been raising funds and awareness to build an all-boys secondary school in rural Kenya. And although our efforts and our focus right now is to build the school, what we really want to do, what we're fighting for, is gender equality in receiving a world-class, quality-relevant education. Traditionally, girls have been so marginalized, and now there's a huge push from Western charities to support the girls, and rightly so, as they've been so discriminated against for so many years. But now it's as if the pendulum has swung too far, and the boys are now the ones being marginalized, in this particular rural community of Kenya anyways. So I knew I had to take action when I finally found and understood that this was the case. And my efforts with Project Jenga started in grade 8, when I returned home from Kenya fueled with energy and passion and ready to make a difference, make a change, and I really wanted to do something. So I went to my grade 8 class and I said, will anyone help me help others halfway across the world? And I promised, I said, these kids are just like us, even though they live in Kenya. And there was a great response, and I sold stickers that read, "It's cool to be kind." And you know what, I do still think that it's cool to be kind. I'm really happy to say that that was my first kind of business venture. And I did other fundraising events like this at my school. I even did a garage sale on my street, but I soon realized that if I wanted to fund an entire school, if I wanted to build a school over in Kenya, I'd have to be more inclusive. So I had to extend my reach to adults. And I did just that. I proceeded to ask everybody I knew. I told them how important it was for me to educate both the boys and the girls on an equal level, and through incredible kindness and generosity, Project Jenga has gained traction. And we continue to ask questions, and sometimes we hear the best answers. And on many occasions, I've heard the best answer, which is yes. I can happily report that as of the summer of 2014, this school broke ground. This all-boys secondary school broke ground. And there were over 1,000 locals that walked up to 5 hours to be a part of the celebration of gender equality in education. I was back again in the summer of 2015, and this time I saw that 2 classrooms had already been built, many more to come. We're looking forward to a lab, a library, a place for the teachers to sleep, a place for the students to sleep, and so much more in order for these boys to be the future leaders of tomorrow. And as of January 2017, this boys' school will be open, and 40 young boys will have a chance to go to high school for the very first time, just like the girls have already done and are doing right now. This progress up the mountain of building an all-boys secondary school hasn't always been easy. Sometimes we've had to stop and ask whether we could or should continue. But because we've asked those questions, we've decided that it's best to continue, and there's no good reason not to continue. Because these boys deserve the education just as much as the girls do, as funny as that sounds. But one thing is for sure, and with the school about to open in just 1 year's time, just over a year, the summit is in sight. Since that day that I saw 40 young girls enter high school for the very first time, so much has changed, and there are now 2 all-girls secondary schools in the area, built by Free the Children. And there are over 300 girls that have a chance to go to school, to go to high school every single day. Those 40 girls that I saw enter high school for the very first time have all since graduated, each and every one of them, and they're likely the first in their families to do so. And even above that, they've all received offers to go to university. And this is something that their mothers and their fathers are so incredibly proud of. The level of education in these communities are really changing the way that people think. But at the same time, it's maintaining the customs and cultural practices that education just should never change. This education is providing these girls, these students, with the opportunity to learn about computer skills and countless other skills that are so necessary on the global scale. But at the same time, it's relevant to their location. In other words, we don't want these girls, these students, to be assimilated into Western culture. We don't want these girls, these students over in Kenya, to be solely learning about North American culture in the sense that they go and play hockey, go to ballet lessons, and then hit a drive-thru on the way home. It just doesn't make sense. Without education in a lot of these communities, there's very little hope. And a lot of the people that live in these rural communities in Kenya, they'll try and move to the city to try and find work. With limited options, they'll go to Kenya's capital of Nairobi, and when they're there, they may want to find a job, provide for their family, and then return back home with something to show for it. But the fact of the matter is, in reality, this isn't often the case, and they may end up in one of Africa's largest slums, Kibera. Kibera is 2.5 kilometers squared and houses roughly 1 million people. 2.5 kilometers squared and houses roughly 1 million people. Sanitation is extremely poor, malnutrition is high, a large part of the population lives with HIV or AIDS, violence is a part of day-to-day life, and danger is everywhere. A lot of those people that live in these communities in Kibera, a lot of the residents, they actually do have a job. But they're earning less than $1 a day, so they can't afford suitable housing. So they end up here. With education, so much more is possible. Jobs are now being offered to girls while they're in school, so that when they finish their secondary school education, they can go back and get a job right at their fingertips. And it's so amazing that these girls right here, from Kisaruni All-Girls Secondary School that I saw enter high school, they all have an opportunity to get a job once they're done their university degree. And this is so exciting to me. One of the things that I've learned on this journey is that going to school is so much more than just about getting an education. It's about the opportunity to be what you want to be and do what you want to do, but even more than that, education, in my opinion, is the best way to create happiness. When I started Project Jenga, I picked the name Jenga because I wanted to build an all-boys secondary school. But what I didn't realize at the time was that we would be building so much more than just a brick-and-mortar structure. We're building a community of kind and caring people that are willing to help others halfway across the world in a country that some young people have never even heard of, for kids that they've never even met. And this is so incredibly powerful to know that this community that we've built as Project Jenga is a direct result of working together. Project Jenga is a direct result of working together. Progress is a direct result of working together. To date, we've raised over $600,000, and none of this could be done alone. It's all as a result of so many kids, so many adults, so many companies, my parents, people who have taken a chance on me, believed in me. This project would not be possible without them. This project, this boys' school, is a direct result of working together. Everybody that contributes to this project puts a hand on the shoulder of a young boy, of a young girl, and says, you can make a difference. You can go to high school. You can get a university degree. You can be successful. Another one of the things that I've learned on this journey is that the speed of progress rarely stays the same. I don't think that matters, just like it didn't matter on the mountain. Progress isn't linear. It doesn't travel in a straight line. It's fluid. It's flexible, continuous, it's adaptable. It doesn't travel at the same speed. It moves all over the place. But as long as you strive to keep moving forward, the summit will always be in sight. There's always something to aspire to be. Whether you're living in Canada, whether you're living in Kenya, or wherever you're living in the entire world. My question came in Kenya. But your question can come at any time, or at any place. My question was, is there a school for boys? And I got a very simple answer, even though I assumed it was something else. And that answer was no. And that no acted as the catalyst for me, the pivot point for me to take action. But your question can come at any point. It could be, would you let your son or daughter go to school here? Or here? Would you let your family drink from water that looked like this? Or this? Would you let your family, and would you be happy with your sons and your daughters growing up in a place that looked like this? The answers are obvious once you ask the questions, but if you never ask the questions, you'll never know the answers. So my question to you is, what will your question be? How are you going to respond? Thank you.